Welcome to Centre Court with thanks to OMF. Kick back and relax with an adjustable bed from Australian design and owned OMF. Watch sport your way. And of course, Cobram Estate, Australia's most awarded extra virgin olive oil, grown and harvested and first cold pressed in northern Victoria. I'm Bianca Chatfield and Maddie Brown is alongside me. I thought I would just blend in with the background here at Centre Court.
I don't own anything pink, so I couldn't come to the party on this one.
What a round that we just had. A few big results for some teams.
Huge, absolutely, some massive wins. You and I were both across 2 games on the long weekend, and yeah, we started to see some real big shifts in the ladder.
All right, well, let's get into the OMF overview. Watch sport your way. And if we take a look at what happened in round 9, it's hard to believe it is actually, round 9 is now done, but the Swifts, they were hosting the Lightning. Now, they got close in the end. Maddie Proud was back in the side and really did make a big difference. But the Sunshine Coast Lightning, they're finding their form now, and it's really obvious, I think, how much damage they could possibly do in this back end of the season.
Absolutely. And then we were in Adelaide for the Thunderbirds versus the Fever. A huge win, a win that I don't think anyone saw coming. We thought it might go down to extra time or a 1 or 2 point win, but the Thunderbirds came out firing, and Fever have a lot of questions to answer.
Now, the Giants, who have been a team that we've been quite often talking about and that they haven't been able to perform. You know, I thought it was a really good effort by them against the Firebirds. The Firebirds couldn't really find a way to stop them, but I thought their shooting end, their defensive end, Erin O'Brien getting the start, that was really impressive, and I think she's only going to get better the more court time she gets for the Giants. So a good win for the Giants.
And then the local derby on King's birthday at John Cain Arena. The Mavs, they hung with the Vixens in the first quarter. It was even Steven, but the supremacy of the Vixens, their clinical best came out. They were getting ball all over the court. There is a potential injury cloud, I think, over maybe Rudy Ellis. She went down with an injury, so what shuffle that might do to them. We saw them forced to use their bench for the first time in a long time, the Vixens, but they are still going from strength to strength and now sitting top of the table.
Supremacy, that's a great word. I love that. I think we need to use that in commentary now, Maddie. Let's take a look at the ladder as it stands right now. Now, the biggest change, obviously, is that the Vixens now go straight to the top of the ladder. They, for the first time this season, has some clean air out the top there. The Fever drop into that second position. But I think, sadly, for the Firebirds, they continue to move down the bottom of that ladder. The Giants, Mavericks, Swifts and Lightning still have a chance to actually make the finals. I get the feeling maybe the Lightning are going to stay where they are and the top 4 might be locked away. What are your thoughts?
Yes, but there is still that tiny little bit of room that if anyone on any given day can beat one of those big teams, and we've seen that every single team is beatable at some point or another, there could be a shuffle in that 4th. But pretty much 4th is the only spot that's really up for grabs.
Well, of course, we're talking about the overview of round 9, and one thing did happen before round 9 started, that was the Australian Diamond squad was announced, and I'm sure congratulations to everybody who made it, and of course, some big new ins to the Diamond squad. Ash Irvin from the Sunshine Coast Lightning, Georgie Horgis from the Adelaide Thunderbirds, and of course,
Hannah Mundy
from the Vixens.
Don't forget a wing and attack there, Bianca.
Lucy Austin and Emily Maddox in as invitees, but what have you made of the changes?
Look, I think, I had obviously asked last week, I'd love to see a bigger depth, but we do know funding can obviously be a bit of a hindrance on that. But I do love the ins. I think they're very warranted, who's in there. I'll be interested to see whether they do get maybe a slot. There's obviously Constellation Cup and potentially, I think, an England series or 2 on the cards. So it is probably the time to have a look at see how some of these youngsters can go. But I would love to see some of those ones that I spoke about last week, maybe just going into those, we know in states they have their training programs. It'd be great to see some of those youngsters invited into those training environments just to have a little bit of a taste as well. But I think it was spot on.
Well, that was the OMF overview. Kick back and relax with an adjustable bed from Australian design and owned OMF. Watch sport your way. Time for the good oil, thanks to Cobram Estate Australian Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Now, joining us again is SEN Netball commentator Georgia Ragic. Welcome, Georgia. Now, what is the good oil you've discovered this week?
Well, I really want to talk about the Pacific Netball Series that's happening right now in Brisbane. It's fantastic to see these teams coming back year after year. This is the 4th time the competition has run. And for the first time ever, we have an Australian First Nations team called the Black Swans, which is a really exciting thing that we're having in netball at the moment, a great pathway for our Indigenous and Aboriginal players coming through.
Well, who are some of the standout players that you think have got everyone in SSN talking?
Well, you cannot go past Scarlett Johnsey. She is a young Western Australian defender. She is also playing in the reserves competition as well at the moment. But she had a phenomenal game on the first day of the competition. 5 gains, but only 5 penalties, which is a great turnaround for a young defender.
Now, there's obviously really good Australian talent, but there's also international flavour on the court, and some of our training partners like Unique Pallavi's obviously playing for Tonga. How's she been going?
She's been going really well. Of course, a player of her quality and stature playing this competition, has World Cup experience, training partner with the Mavs. I kind of wonder if they missed her over the weekend, wouldn't mind having her in.
Could have used her.
Yeah, she has that versatility at goal attack and goal shooter, and we see in the Victorian Netball League, she's been playing a lot of goal attack for the City West Falcons, but she gets to play, I guess, her preferred position in goal shooter for Tonga at the moment, and she's been doing really, really well.
And remember at the World Cup for Tonga, just how tricky she was. She was throwing it off the post, she was shooting long, her and Kat Tuivati. They were amazing together, weren't they, as a combination?
They absolutely were, and they have this amazing flair and ability to get goals in from anywhere in the circle, but also it's just so hard to predict as a defender when you're coming up against players like that. And it's just great to see Tonga have a remarkable record in this competition. They've had an 18-game winning streak until Tuesday when they went down to rank the 20th place in Namibia. So this year could actually be anyone's competition.
And when does it finish? How long does the tournament go for?
It'll go until this weekend, but there's 6 teams this year. There was 8 last year, so it will be a finals day as well this weekend.
Any selectors in the stands or notable selectors in the stands, maybe having a look at as we said, the next up and coming?
Haven't seen any as of yet, but Denelle Wallam's been in the stands supporting on the team, but also we've had Beryl Friday, a former Suncorp Super Netball player, also been on comms as well, and I've got to give a massive shout out to the comms team. SEN commentator Cal Harrison's on there, as well as David Mills, who is a former Australian men's coach, so make sure you're watching. It's on Netball Pass, it's live, free and on demand as well.
Okay, perfect. So you can make sure you watch it if you haven't been able to catch any of it. And thank you so much for coming in to keep us up to date. Now, I want to know, do you think, this is a question without notice, do you think the top 4 in SSN is locked in? Not the positions, but just the teams that are in that top 4.
Well, Lightning's made their way back in. So that's my I think there was a massive battle for 4th position the past couple of weeks, but I think Lightning are really hitting their strides now. Top 3, definitely locked in for finals. But I think now that Lightning's really got that little 4-point buffer, I reckon this is it for the rest of the year.
I hope it comes down to the wire, but we'll wait and see, George.
Well, that was the good oil. Thanks to Cobram Estate, Australia's most awarded extra virgin olive oil, grown, harvested and first cold pressed in Northern Victoria. Okay, it's now time for Maddie's Minute. Maddie, take it away.
Thank you, B. Well, last week we had Sharon Kelly on and she was talking about, obviously, the process of a rule change or an introduction. So I want to throw it out to our listeners. If we could, now that we've seen 9 rounds of netball, what would we change or introduce? I'm going to go first. I'm going to give a little bit of a tidbit. I think that we should start to stop the clock, whether it's in that power 5 or whether it's the final minute of the game. Because we do see a very inconsistency with the umpires, whether they're holding time. We see players delaying into the circle to get the centre pass. We're beyond the, I've hurt my finger, I need to come on. We've got the interchange rule now. So let's be a little bit more professional. Let's hold the clock because so many games are coming down to the absolute wire. So I would love to potentially see that implemented so that every single second is really important and we don't see any just rolling back or, sauntering over to get the ball. We're past that now.
So the end of every quarter? The last
end of every quarter, I think, rather than, and whether it's the power 5, so the final 5 minutes or the final 1 minute, the rest of play, unless it's really deliberate, I think should just carry on. But too many times we're just seeing sometimes umpires call it, sometimes umpires don't. So let's just be consistent and let's just leave it down to the play on court.
Love it. And I saw you had a couple of seconds left, so I'm just going to add in the intimidation rule for defenders needs to absolutely go. That is
gone.
The worst rule. That is our job as defenders, is to intimidate. I don't understand how you can get pulled for intimidation.
Yes, yeah.
But I must say, on the umpires too, the things that have come into the game this year have been really good to see. The fact you can play on and take a throw in without everyone being back on court, the fact that the goal counts as long as it's left the shooter's hands. I think all of that has actually really added to the game.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying this has to fall on the umpires. Maybe it's just a person with the clock just stopping and starting, so then it's not whistle, whistle, whistle all the time. But anytime there's a penalty, anytime the ball falls out of court, hold it, let's have that last 5 minutes as absolutely crucial. Every second counts.
Well, send us your feedback about what you think could be added or changed into the game to make it just even better than what it already is. Let's get into the round 10 preview, and we'll start by looking at the fixture. It all gets underway in Sydney. It's the Giants and the Thunderbirds. And then following that, the Lightning and the Vixens up on the sunny coast. Then the Mavericks and the Firebirds in Melbourne on Sunday, and the Fever and the Swifts. The two games that we really want to focus on, firstly, is the Lightning and Vixens. There is going to be a lot in this game.
Well, even after the Monday clash, I spoke with, obviously, Kira Austin, and she said we were so bitterly disappointed after playing them earlier on in the season. They said they came off court and were just like, we'd love to go out and just rectify that and have 60 minutes again. So the Vixens were hurting. It was visible. They definitely want to go up and win. There's obviously, you know, they want to get that one up, I think, on Lizzie Watson as well. But there's lots riding on the line here. You know, if Lightning can win, then it just edges them a little bit closer to it. And Vixens, they've already got that clear air, as you said, up the top. Why not push ahead, really solidify that first home final amongst a huge crowd at John Cain Arena?
Oh, absolutely, no doubt. Now, the last game of round 10 is, of course, the Fever and the Swifts. Now, the Fever coming off an 18-point defeat. I can't even imagine how fired up they are going to be to get back on their winning ways, to find the systems that work for them and the structures that work for them, especially in attack, being able to find that feed into Fowler-Nema that they couldn't, the Thunderbirds were able to cover in every way. So that's going to be really one to watch. I can't imagine Dan Ryan resting on his laurels at all this week. He will be absolutely fired up to really take down the Swifts. We know there's a lot going on in the New South Wales Swifts camp. We don't even have an update for you today. There's no more to really talk about yet. However, you can see how much has taken a toll on that side. Maddie Proud back, though, since she was injected back into the side. I think she had a huge impact in their last game in round 9. It's only going to start getting better, I think, for the Swifts and the more consistent court time, especially Sophie Fawns. She's been doing a great job, hasn't she?
The moving circle could provide a huge headache, I think, for the Fever, and it is really a danger game. We've seen, I think, just slowly the Fever starting to chip away a little bit. So I know that they will want to get absolutely back to, as you said, to their start of the season form, because they were blistering back then.
Okay, well, it's time now for Social Scoop. Now, this week we have a question from Ian from Avoca. Now, Ian asks, why do the umpires seem to ignore the 3-second holding the ball rule so often in SSN? Holding the ball, or held ball, as we'd often call it.
Oh, you know what? It's probably the same equivalent in AFL as, you know, dropping the ball, incorrect disposal.
Yeah.
It's sometimes scored, it sometimes isn't. It's very confusing sometimes. I think, Ian, it's a really good question, though, because we heard the umpires say that that is something that they are really going to be honing down on, and yet we didn't see many calls on the weekend, and there were probably plenty of players flirting with the time, that's for sure. So maybe, once again, it is something that needs to be looked at a little bit more, but I also don't like... We know that shows really good unit defence. Like,
yes,
when you get a held ball, it's a team win.
Yes.
So it's great to have them called, but also at the end of the day, just keep the play flowing for me.
Well, and Sharon Kelly actually mentioned that, didn't she? That in their reviews they do after each game, they do sometimes like put a timer on how long someone's held the ball for, whether they should have called it, whether they shouldn't have called it. So they're constantly trying to, you know, make sure that they're on top of that. So you don't like to see them, but as a defender, you love to hear that call, that's for sure. Thanks for sending that in, Ian. Now, I've got another social scoop for you. Somebody has sent in a photo. Now, take a look at this photo right here. If you see right up the back of the photo, that is the owner of the Melbourne Mavericks, Craig Hutchison, not just getting involved with having a team off the court. Now he's taken to the court, and apparently quite dominant in it, goal shooter. Over 80% accuracy, apparently, when he's had the goal shooter bib on.
Yeah, but then went down the other end and highly penalised. So
highly
stick in the attack end, Hutchie, I think.
Now, that team is some of the partners of the Mavericks players playing in that. Amy Parmenta's fiancé, Kim Jenner's fiancé, they're all playing that team as well.
Taylor Fraser is the coach.
Taylor Fraser is the coach. So you know what? Anyone out there, any social scoops, go out there and get some footage so that we can play it one day and really get a look at Craig Hutchie and how he's playing the game of netball. And if you have anything that you want to send it through to our social channels. Any questions, any comments, any insights, anything that you want us to discuss on next week's version of Centre Court, we're happy to do that. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to OMF, Watch Sport Your Way, and Cobram Estate Australian Extra Virgin Olive Oil. We'll see you next week.